Spring has been absurdly costly, and that's putting it mildly. The operation has already burned through more money this year than in any previous season, and the real work has barely begun. Parker Schnabel set an ambitious goal of $25 million for this season. Right now, that goal is bleeding out slowly and expensively, 1 ounce at a time. The season's running total sits at 3,867.8 ounces, well short of the 10,000-ounce target. His best wash plant has gone offline because frozen ground is eating into the profit margin at twice the rate anyone anticipated. The Alaska drilling program swallowed $200,000 and returned just 32 milligrams per hole, far below the 200 milligram minimum required to make purchasing the land worthwhile. Then this week, after a broken drive shaft knocked out Sulfur Creek's wash plant midweek, Bob's cleanup landed at exactly 299.0 ounces. The target was 300, 1 single ounce short. The season is winding toward its close. It has been brutal. The operation is running well behind where it needs to be, and the situation is only going to deteriorate further. Parker has already walked back his original 10,000-ounce goal, revising it down to 8,000. And even that reduced target remains well out of reach. This is what genuine pressure looks like. When Bob goes down at Sulfur Creek, the implications are serious. Sulfur Creek is pre-stripped ground, meaning all the overburden has already been cleared away. The pay layer is fully exposed. The only thing wash plant Bob needs to do is run material through the system and put gold on the scale. There's no stripping to account for, no weeks of setup costs to absorb. The plant simply needs to keep producing gold. The plan is to pull strips around the outer edge of the bridge cut and hope the material there is rich with gold. Bob either runs pay dirt or he sits completely idle. When Bob goes down, nothing about the day makes any sense. This particular week, Bob goes down hard. A broken drive shaft on the pre-wash conveyor halts the entire system before operations ever find their rhythm. The pre-wash conveyor is the artery that feeds pay dirt into the wash plant. Without it functioning, Bob is nothing more than an expensive piece of steel parked on stripped ground with gold sitting just beneath it. Bill and Justin received the call. A father and son mechanic team, the two people Parker trusts most. When something serious breaks in the middle of the wilderness on a machine that shouldn't require this level of attention yet, they load up the truck and head out. What they discover when they arrive makes everything considerably worse. The replacement drive shaft they've brought is the wrong size, too long by a full foot and a half. And the keyway, the precisely cut groove that locks the drive shaft into the conveyor's bearings and sprockets, doesn't align properly at either end. If the keyways aren't in perfect alignment when the shaft is installed, the chain will begin tracking sideways within minutes. The conveyor will fail again. They are standing in the Yukon wilderness holding the wrong part with no backup plan, and Parker waiting on a status update. Bill floats an idea, fabricate some spacer blocks for the tail pulley, then unbolt the tail pulley from its bearing and insert a spacer in between. There's no obvious path forward. The yard is hours away. Returning empty-handed is not something Parker would accept, and both Bill and Justin are well aware of that. So Bill approaches the problem from a completely different angle. The shaft is too long by a foot and a half, so cut it down to the correct length. The keyway on the near end is too short and doesn't match the bearing slot. Flip the shaft 180 degrees and check the opposite end. The far end's keyway is also wrong, but if they grind it out to match the profile of the original broken shaft, it might seat properly. It's an improvised solution. It means grinding a precise keyway groove out in the field using hand tools rather than the milling equipment a proper machine shop would have. It means cutting the shaft to an exact length without a lathe. Every measurement has to be right on the first attempt because there is no second replacement shaft in the truck. But it's the only option that doesn't involve driving back to the yard and telling Parker that the job isn't happening today. Bill flips the shaft. Justin checks the keyway alignment on both ends. They line up. They mark the cut point, bring the grinder to the shaft, and get to work, cutting it to length, grinding the new keyway profile millimeter by millimeter until the geometry precisely matches the original. They fit the bearings into the pre-wash housing, Mount the modified shaft into position, and seat the sprockets onto the chain so the drive engages cleanly on both sides without pulling the chain off track. Every step completed in sequence out in the field with Tyson relaying messages from the plant. Tyson is fielding calls from Parker throughout the entire process. The pressure comes through loud and clear in every radio transmission. Bill and Justin fire Bob back up. The chain moves. It tracks true along the full length of the conveyor without pulling to either side. They call over to Sean to get dirt moving through the machine. They start up the conveyor, get the plant shaking, and soon enough it's ready to wash rock. Parker himself shows up in the loader, and that's a welcome sight. The pre-wash system feeds pay dirt into the wash plant exactly as it should. Sulfur Creek is running again. Hours of washing time have already been lost to the morning breakdown, but the plant is running. The improvised drive shaft holds. A week that fractured badly at the start can at least finish on a clean note. Weekly cleanup. 3 jars, 3 operations. Parker stands at the scale already doing the math in his head before the first ounce hits the pan. Big Red goes first. It has been running top gravels in the bridge cut all week and delivers 98.5 ounces. Better than the previous week, worth around $250,000. Edging toward an ounce per hour of run time. Parker notes the result and moves on. Roxan is next, working the second half of the long cut all week. She puts up 168.2 ounces, worth more than $420,000. It's a triple-digit number. It's better than the week before. Mitch points out that it beats a kick in the teeth, which is technically accurate, but triple digits against a required weekly pace of 430 ounces is still a long way from where things need to be. Then comes Bob. Parker's target for Sulfur Creek's first complete week of running was 300 ounces. After the broken drive shaft, after Bill and Justin's field repair, after the washing hours lost at the start of the week, Bob's results go onto the scale. The numbers climb: 60, 80, 100, 150, 200, 250, 280, and stop at 299.0. 1 ounce short. Parker stares at the jar. The gold from Sulfur Creek is clean and heavy, exactly the kind of material that ground was always meant to produce. 1 ounce is all that separates a week that proved the operation is working from a week that fell just below its own benchmark. The broken conveyor, the wrong size drive shaft, the hours Bill and Justin spent grinding a new keyway in the wilderness. All of it shows up in that one missing ounce. An operation running without interruption would have cleared 300 with ease. The week's combined total across all 3 operations, 565.7 ounces. The pace required to reach 10,000 ounces by season's end is 430 per week. Every single week, without interruption. The running season total as of this cleanup is 3,867.8 ounces, against a target that now demands more than 6,100 additional ounces to achieve. We're on track. We're really on track. This just might work. That gap does not close without something fundamental changing in how the operation runs. The target and the pace are not aligned. Parker's 7,500-acre Dominion Creek claim sits 50 miles southeast of Dawson City, deep in the heart of the Klondike gold fields. Last season, he pulled 4,500 ounces from the money pit, the biggest result from a single cut in his entire career. He is now chasing the same pace streak northward into the long cut, his only pre-stripped ground, which he believes can yield more than $7 million in gold before the season wraps up. To reach 10,000 ounces, Parker needs multiple wash plants running simultaneously at a combined output his operation has never consistently maintained. Every stretch of frozen ground, every mechanical failure, every hour a plant sits idle tightens a schedule that had almost no room to breathe to begin with. The crew understands what they're attempting. Nothing in the operation's history has demanded this much ground moved, this many wash plants running at once, or this little margin for the kind of breakdowns and permafrost delays that have already consumed weeks of productive time. The targets Parker is chasing are targets his crew has never hit. What makes this season different is that the gap between those targets and where the operation actually stands is wider than it has ever been, and the season is no longer young. The season total is 3,867.8 ounces. Parker has revised the target from 10,000 down to 8,000. He is not on pace for 8,000. To get there, he needs more than 4,100 additional ounces from operations that are running below pace, pushing into untested ground, or sitting idle while waiting for the permafrost to release the pay layer beneath. The math has not favored this season, and it shows no sign of turning around. Big Red heads for the red gravel. Big Red has been working the top pay dirt layer in the 114-acre bridge cut for 7 straight weeks. That top layer is now exhausted. The logical next move would be to relocate the plant, find another section of proven ground, and keep producing from known pay. Parker does something different instead. Half a mile upstream, in the middle of the bridge cut, he has already stripped 16 feet of overburden and uncovered something he wants to test. A layer of red gravel sits between the mined-out top pay and the frozen white channel pay that won't be workable until next season. He has stockpiled the material, dug it out, piled it up, and had it sitting ready to process. Nobody has ever run it through a wash plant. To the best of his knowledge, nobody has ever processed that red gravel before. And this is in a gold field that has been worked continuously since the Klondike rush of the late 1800s. That statement carries real weight. Either the gold simply isn't there, or it is there and has been sitting untouched for over a century. Parker is betting on the second option with zero data to back it up. The move doesn't go smoothly. There are 2 full lost days waiting on a replacement tail drum before Big Red can even be repositioned at the new site. While Tyson manages the equipment move on the surface, Alec and Liam are back at the laydown yard racing against time on the hopper feeder installation. The replacement tail drum arrives. They pull it from the truck using a hoist. The drum weighs 200 pounds. They slide the old drum off the shaft, fit the new one, hoist it back into position inside the feeder housing, align it and bolt it in place. It's the kind of 2-man mechanical task that can't be rushed. Rushing it only makes it take longer. Parker comes over the radio. Alec, I hope you're making good progress on that feeder, because we need it now. The feeder goes in. Big Red fires up. Tyson throws the first bucket of red gravel into the hopper, and nobody in the entire operation has any idea what's about to come out the other end. For days of running later, the jar goes on the scale. 136.5 ounces, worth more than $341,000. The more gold that keeps coming out, the more it feels like this is genuinely good ground. Not just a lucky starting spot, but consistently productive material. At first it was pure relief, but now it's starting to generate real excitement. For Big Red, running completely untested red gravel on its first 4-day run, 136.5 ounces needs no explanation. It came from ground that has never been processed, on a gamble supported by nothing except Parker's reading of the material and his gut feeling about what the bridge cut still has left to give. 136 ounces. The stockpile of red gravel is large enough to support several more runs. The grade this first cleanup established is better than Parker needed it to be. The red gravel isn't a complete seasonal solution on its own, but it is a real, solid number at a moment when real, solid numbers have been genuinely hard to come by. And it gives Parker's operation something that has been in short supply all season long. Time. The long cut shines, then the frost wins. Roxan delivers 285.1 ounces from the long cut this week, worth more than $712,000. The best single haul from that cut all season. For 1 week, the long cut performs at exactly the level Parker always believed it was capable of. The gold is there. The grade is there. The operation is working. Then the weather report arrives. 10 more days of cold. No warming trend. No meaningful thaw on the horizon. The long cut depends on thawed pay dirt. The permafrost beneath the surface only releases pay material when sustained warmth penetrates deep enough. And this season, that warmth has simply not been cooperating. Parker's crew has been battling the frost with dozers, pushing the thin thawed surface layer toward the rock, centimeter by centimeter. feeding the wash plant on the narrow margin between frozen ground and the sun's limited reach. Tyson's 480 excavator runs a flat-edge cleanup bucket built specifically for scraping pay cleanly off frozen material. That bucket already has a crack that is worsening with every pass. When the bucket fails, the pay supply dries up. Roxan idles. The only active revenue source the operation has goes silent. The cost of fighting the frost is running at double the projected margin. The machines are absorbing the kind of punishment that shows up in repair bills 2 seasons down the road. Every dollar burned fighting the permafrost is a dollar that never reaches the bottom line of a season that is already in the red. Parker and Mitch think through the options. Option 1. Keep pushing, keep burning money, keep running the dozers against the permafrost and hope the weather breaks before the costs destroy the margin entirely. Option 2. Shut down the long cut. Let it sit. Let the permafrost thaw at its own pace over 3 weeks, except doing so means forfeiting over $1 million in revenue that Parker had already built into his season plan. Parker makes the call. The long cut shuts down. The $1 million in planned revenue it was supposed to generate over the next 3 weeks will not arrive on schedule. We need to just slow down and let the sun do its thing. The hard part for me is just not running out of money, because time costs money. I'm not sure this is the right decision, but I know what we were doing wasn't working. The long cut goes quiet. Roxan stops running. The season's most productive wash plant, which just delivered its best single week of the entire year, goes offline and waits for the sun to accomplish what the crew cannot force it to do on a timeline that suits a 10,000-ounce target. Smallwood Creek, $200,000 gone. Parker needs new ground. The Dominion and Scribner Creek operations won't run forever, and the company's long-term future depends on locking down productive Alaska ground before the opportunity closes. Smallwood Creek looked like a viable candidate. Historical drilling data hinted at gold concentrations that might justify a $3 million acquisition at depth. Parker and Liam Ferguson have been drilling test holes across 8 lines and have sunk close to $200,000 into the program. The results have been inconsistent in the worst possible way. 1 or 2 strong holes per line, never back-to-back, no continuous pay streak, no reliable zone that would define a workable cut. The gold appears in pockets, concentrated in isolated spots, absent in the surrounding ground. For Smallwood Creek to justify its price tag, Parker needs to see at least 200 milligrams per viable hole. What the drill keeps returning is 30 to 32 milligrams. The gold is undeniably present. It just isn't present in the concentration or continuity that makes 100-foot deep ground worth the extraction cost. The water table is high. The frost is intermittent. The overburden is deep. At those depths, with those costs, the grade needs to be exceptional. It isn't exceptional. The final line of holes is the last realistic chance to change that conclusion. Parker and Liam work through each sample carefully. The last hole, the one Liam has identified as the strongest candidate on the line, the one carrying the most weight in the final decision, comes back at 32 milligrams. Against the 200 milligram minimum, the ground needs to justify its $3 million asking price, 32 milligrams at 100 feet of depth, with high water and intermittent frost, does not work financially. The cost of extraction would swallow any margin the grade could possibly generate. Parker thanks Liam, writes off the $200,000, and walks away from the property. The search for Alaska ground that actually makes financial sense starts over from scratch. Where the season stands, the season total is 3,867.8 ounces. The revised target is 8,000. Parker needs more than 4,100 additional ounces from 3 operations running at uneven capacity, with the long cut sitting offline, waiting 3 weeks for the permafrost to release. Sulfur Creek is producing. Bob's first full week came 1 ounce short of the 300-ounce target after losing hours to the drive shaft failure, which means the operation, when it runs without interruption, can hit its number. Bill and Justin's improvised field repair has held through the rest of the week. The keyway groove Bill ground out in the field in the middle of nowhere is still seated correctly. Sulfur Creek is intact and running. Big Red is working the red gravel, with no ceiling yet established. The first 4-day run returned 136.5 ounces from ground nobody has ever processed before. The stockpile is large. The grade is unquantified in both directions. It could improve as Big Red works deeper into the material, or the pocket could thin out. There is no drilling data to predict which way it goes. The long cut is shut down and thawing. 3 weeks minimum before Roxan goes back online. Roxan just delivered 285 ounces in a single week, the best week of the season from the long cut, and is now sitting idle because the permafrost won't release fast enough to make pushing it financially worthwhile. I didn't think it would be this much work keeping 3 wash plants going. Taylor's been a busy man. We're putting a lot of miles on the trucks this year, and with 3 plants, they're completely worn out. That represents $1 million in planned seasonal revenue that is not arriving on schedule. Smallwood Creek is closed. The $200,000 is gone. The $3 million price tag on the property remains for whoever is willing to take the risk. Parker has walked away. Parker is not someone who uses the word scary to describe his own season. He is using it now. 3 active operations. 1 shut down waiting for the permafrost to release on its own schedule. 1 producing near its weekly target whenever the machines manage to stay together long enough to run a full week. 1 running untested red gravel with no prior data and no ceiling established in either direction. The 10,000-ounce season is gone. The revised 8,000-ounce target requires the long cut to thaw on schedule, the red gravel to maintain its grade through Big Red's full run, and Sulfur Creek to keep landing near 300 ounces a week without another drive shaft giving out, another wrong-sized part showing up in the truck, or another 10-day cold snap locking the permafrost tight against every dozer blade Parker can push against it, and the target slips further out of reach. The long cut will thaw. The question is whether it thaws in time, and whether Sulfur Creek and the red gravel can generate enough ounces across the 3 weeks the long cut sits idle to keep the season total within reach of 8,000. 3 operations, each running on 3 very different problems with 3 very different timelines, and 1 number that has to come out right before the season ends. Parker doesn't control all 3. He controls how hard he pushes on the ones he can.